And this newest information from the British government compounds the already growing tension between Russia and Ukraine. So where do things go from here, and what does this mean for the United States? Joining me now, retired Army Lieutenant General and CNN military analyst Mark Hertling and CNN political analyst Josh Rogin. Great to see you both, gentlemen. General, let's start with you. What is your take on this report from the UK?
It's a great report, Pamela. What I'll say is Russia uses multiple types of covert and overt attacks and maneuver options that they hope will cause divisiveness in any country they're looking to persuade to do or influence to do what they want them to do. None of this is new or unusual. And most countries in Europe, I'd cite Montenegro, Romania, Estonia, Lithuania, and others, have all been affected by Russian malign actions in the past, will tell you that they have had experience in these types of areas. And without divulging details, I used to receive intelligence about this kind of thing as the commander of U.S. Army Europe. And your question a minute ago about why are they putting this out there now, it's a great question. It's on the mark because intelligence communities used to keep these kinds of things close hold. But now, this kind of information, this publication of information, is critically important to fighting back against what Russia is doing, because they will continue to use these types of operations to influence. You know, the main issue of an attack that we've all been concerned about is just one of the many things that they can do. There's asymmetric warfare, continued attempts at false flag, covert replacement of Ukrainian officials, air campaign, ground maneuvers, and I think that's what we've got to be concerned about as these actions continue between Russia is trying to influence not only Ukraine, but NATO and the rest of the EU as well.
Right. I'm curious if you're seeing, when you look at, Josh, the annexation of Crimea and how countries responded to that, including the U.S., and how they're responding to what's going on there on the Ukrainian border with Russia. Do you see a difference there, like, you know, the UK releasing this report tonight, laying out the information they have on this puppet government?
Yes, Pamela. Actually, I see the biggest difference on the Russian side, because in 2014, as horrible as that invasion was, they never went to Kiev. They never occupied the capital city, and they never installed a rump government with a fake president, which is what this intelligence report says they're planning to do. Now, of course, it might be one of many plans. It doesn't mean that's exactly what they're going to do. But the fact that they have a plan to occupy the country means that their tolerance for pain might be a lot higher than what the Biden administration has calculated. And I think that's why you see the Ukrainians and a lot of people in Washington, frankly, calling for the Biden administration to do more, calling for more lethal aid. Why is it that this was the first ammunition? I mean, we've been in this crisis for how many months? They just started dropping off ammunition. I mean, I think there's a lot of people on the ground who say, listen, we don't know what Putin's going to do, but the best way to stop the war is by increasing the aid now, increasing the sanctions now, because once he occupies Kiev, even though the whole world will know that this is a crazy stunt and to snuff out Ukrainian democracy, it will be too late. And if one of the options is to install a rump government and then tell all the world to go pound sand, well, I don't think sanctions are ever going to change that once they've done it. So I think that we have a lot of reason to be very alarmed.
So, General Hertling, do you think the fact that Russia is putting together this possible puppet government, does that tell you an invasion is imminent?
No, I'm sure that they want to influence Ukraine's action, and I'm not sure that the intelligence that's been passed through the British agency is completely linked with a puppet government. Instead, I would suggest that it has to do with replacing officials in a very covert manner, so that there is more intelligence coming from inside Ukraine back to the Russian government. You know, it would be very difficult to try and completely overthrow Ukraine's central government in Kyiv. You're talking about a president and a parliament and ministries, but the Russians certainly could try and influence intelligence passing and use part of what they call Maskarova, the reduction of intelligence within Ukraine, by placing individuals in key positions. That's something Russia has done before. I don't think they're considering right now the replacement of the entire Ukrainian government in Kyiv.
I want to go to this statement we just got in from the U.S. National Security Council expressing solidarity with Ukraine. It says, quote, This kind of plotting is deeply concerning. The Ukrainian people have the sovereign right to determine their own future, and we stand with our democratically elected partners in Ukraine. Josh Rogin, quickly, just if you would, lay out what is at stake for Americans, for those who might look at this and say, well, that's over there, that's between, Russia and Ukraine. There is a lot at stake, though, for America, right?
That's right. What happens in Ukraine does not stay in Ukraine. Not to mention the fact that if there's a war in Ukraine and if they occupied Kiev, that would be a bloody conflict in the middle of a pandemic that would reverberate through Europe. The precedent would have been set that democracies can be snuffed out even in 2022. And that's a green light for other autocrats like, let's say, Xi Jinping to believe that America and the West has no stomach to fight back against this. And so I think what you would see is a domino effect, and that would have repercussions first in Europe and then around the world. And we can say, well, that's over there, but it's really too late by the time democracies have been snuffed out, because in the end, it's very hard to restore them. And once we let one go, it's not going to be the last.
Josh Rogin, General Mark Hartling, thank you so much.
Thanks, Pam.
Anytime.